No one else. And
Does anybody know which review we're doing on?
Absolutely.
Because we got
I mean, we're
Oh, okay. We're done. Hey, Jim. How you doing? Good. How about you?
I'm not in favor of certain things. It's not my personal.
Hi, John.
How we doing site plan? Hey.
How are you?
And is that wrong?
Oh, yeah. The first thing is this. First thing on the agenda,
I would too. Yeah, I would too.
which was a wonderful presentation.
Oh yeah, right? Good too.
Yeah, your marketing.
When I got that, I opened it. My wife was like, "Is everything like this?" I'm like, "No." I mean,
Oh, especially these.
yeah, the tabs, the towels.
Oh, from Barclay?
That should be the standard.
For all those in the audience, we are live streaming now, so if there's something you don't want to be picked up by the cameras, you might want to take it outside. We haven't started yet, so you can continue.
Couple minutes.
You, Carl, sits on screen, you state, start.
So when the first person comes up, I'll make note of the fact that it's... Hi, Mike. How you doing? Good, good. I'm going to, yeah.
Yeah, but we're not there yet.
While you guys are reading the communications, I'll read that sheet again.
Oh.
So 2 this month, 1 first week of April, and then we're off.
I don't know.
It's supposed to be for the school break.
Say, Mike, yes.
But why are we connecting this whole thing?
Some of us have kids in school. Or some of us have kids that are in school. That are on. And then... Pardon?
You sure, man?
I mean, they have kids in school, so they can do both things. And we work today, so this is... Okay, we're going to start now. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Cindy.
Here, Lorenzo.
Here.
Rebecca Anderson.
Here.
John Colquist.
Here.
Anthony Gorski.
Here.
Joseph Keith.
Here.
Lawrence Krasneski.
Here.
Michael Reynolds.
Here. Okay, welcome everyone. This is a meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Lancaster. Please keep in mind that we are an advisory and recommending board and not a final decision-making body. All right, we'll take a look at the meeting minutes from the February 19th meeting. Ask if there's any additions or deletions or comments. Hearing none, look for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, we'll move on to the communications list. Looks like we've got a pretty good audience here, so while the board members are looking through the communications list, I'm going to read a statement here for the audience. And this is regarding persons addressing the planning board and the rules. Persons desiring to address the planning board may address the planning board at any regular planning board meeting. The planning board will hear the concerns of the public at this meeting for a period of 15 minutes per project. A person desiring to be heard shall raise his or her hand and be recognized by the chair, give his or her name and address to the secretary, and then speak directly to planning board members, not the audience, using the microphone provided. And again, keep in mind, we will limit that to 15 minutes per project. Okay, we'll move on to our agenda. First project is project number 3001, ESG Properties, 6125 Genesee Street.
Good evening, members of the planning board. My name is Ari Goldberg from the law firm of Barclay Damon, joined tonight by Kathleen Rogers from ESG. For some of you on this board, I think Mr. Keefe, Ms. Anderson, and Mr. Gorski, this might be a relatively familiar project to you. Back in November 2021, this planning board recommended a negative declaration for improvements at 6125 Genesee Street to accommodate the soil recycling operation. Came back before the board in March of 2022, and then the board recommended site plan approval. The town board eventually adopted that negative declaration, the site plan approval and the special use permit. And then as operations began, it was discovered that certain features of the site as developed did not line up with the approved site plan. So what's back before you is a site plan that is commensurate with what is there. Pretty minor changes that Kathleen will explain, but really that's all before you. Your recommendation on both the site plan and special use permit pursuant to Town of Lancaster Town Code. And one thing to make clear, and I think Kathleen will echo this as well, because we're asking you to make a recommendation on a site plan that is commensurate with what is actually there now during operations, there's no disturbance proposed as part of this project. There's no construction activity at all. It's just to get the paper to align with reality. Kathleen, you want to come forward and explain the changes?
Sure. Hi. Thanks very much. So the biggest difference in terms of what the site plan that was approved and what was constructed is the sediment basins that take care of stormwater and sediment collection from the facility itself. The sediments as built are slightly to the south of where they were proposed. And in the original site plan, the riprap from those sediment basins went to the east, exiting the ESG property onto the neighboring town of Lancaster property. As they're built now, the sediment basins and riprap spillway go to the south. So it directs any stormwater to remain on ESG's property to the south. The other changes in terms of what was on the approved site plan and what's on the ground will be the location of the scale house and truck scales. Those were proposed a little bit to the southeast of where they're located on the ground now. When construction of the facility was done in 2022, there was an existing scale house and scale on the property. And ESG elected to go ahead and use the scale where it was located rather than relocate it. So it is depicted on the drawing that's before you now where it exists on the ground. Yes, thanks, Ari. The detention basins and riprap sediment spillway are have the same volume capacity in terms of stormwater. And in our application packet, we provided the engineering showing that. Is there anything else in particular you'd like me to go through or discuss? I know there were a couple of comments that we received and responded to. I can address any of those at this point if you'd like.
Any questions or comments from the board at this point?
I'm just curious you've been in business now for a few years, and is there a lot of volume coming through here? And I understand you may be bringing in, I read about the different soil types of different amounts of contamination and stuff. What are you typically handling, I guess is my question.
So that's part of what kind of has spurred on some of the changes reflected in our project description. The DEC and the state redefined their fill types in the state code. So the contaminants present, the volumes of those are basically unchanged, but how the state handles the permitting has changed a bit. So under the old regulations, we were often tasked with providing beneficial use proof to the state. The way they've redefined the definitions now, beneficial use is implied in those fill type definitions. So we're really not seeing any different types of materials under those different definitions. It has streamlined our process a bit. And in terms of capacity, in our limit with the state as the permit stands right now is 25,000 cubic yards. Last year, 2024, we took in about 21,000 cubic yards.
And then it goes out.
And then it goes out.
Goes out.
Correct.
Do the numbers pretty much line up? What comes in goes out eventually?
Yes. Yep. As operations stand now, that is the case.
Thank you.
And so no problem. The operation of the facility, we're not proposing any changes operationally.
So am I to understand that you're currently operating at the site and have been continuously since you were in front of us last time, and since you got your approval last time?
That's correct.
And since the special use permit has been suspended, if I'm not correct, the current one?
Yes.
And you've continuously been in operation though, right?
This is pretty much an off-season for the operation, so I can't speak to exactly what has been coming and going in terms of the last couple of months.
Okay.
Since it's been revoked, we've also been in contact with the code enforcement office the entire time, which is what prompted us to come back here and make sure that I think maybe when the season restarts in full, we're fully.
Okay. Another question that I have is that if I'm reading everything correctly, looks like the narrative claims that the facility capacity is going to be at 32,000 cubic yards,
That's what we're proposing.
and DEC regulations limit the storage at 25,000 cubic yards, so I'm assuming that you're working with DEC on that?
That's correct. We have an application for renewal in to the DEC already. When those fill type definitions changed, that was required of facilities like this. Any facility that handles fill type and debris was required to reapply with the state. So we've done that, but we've actually put that application on hold until we've resolved things here with the town.
Okay.
But the application that's with the state, the capacities would match.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Comments? Ed, anything from engineering?
A couple of things. I just got the responses, so I haven't dove into the engineering side of it yet. But I wanted to follow up on the DEC permit. It was a registered facility,
That's right.
okay? And have they changed the limit for registration?
They have not changed the limit of registration. We, depending on our resolution with this board, we would, if necessary, pursue a permit with the state instead of a registration.
A full permit?
That's right.
Okay, all right.
So what would that do for the board tonight?
From a site plan perspective, not much, but they won't be able to operate without a permit
Okay.
if they're pursuing a full permit.
Yep.
So we, just to kind of elaborate on that point, we have been in contact with the DEC as well. They're aware of this situation that we're in now, so they are kind of working collaboratively with us to resolve everything too.
Okay. Good. Ed, anything else?
No, not like, we'll start looking at the responses this week, next week.
Okay. Emily, anything from legal?
The only thing is seeker. We did coordinate seeker for this one again. As you discussed, it was constructed slightly different than what the plans were. So we've already coordinated seeker, but I think the next meeting we'll be able to do the seeker review. It was coordinated 2/20, if I'm not mistaken. So when we have you guys back here, we'll be ready to. Not the next meeting, but the first meeting in April.
April 2nd, I think, would be the next
Would be the next
one
one.
available for them.
It was county referral made as well.
Pardon me?
It was county referral made as well.
Yes.
Emily, anything else?
That's all.
For the board's recommendation, will they wait for initial seeker feedback in 30 days or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Matt, anything from building?
I did get through the responses that were received yesterday from my comments to the submittal. And there's several instances here where I need to make comment for this board so you can understand where we are and why we're even here today. So again, the re-inspection of the special use permit. When we were on site, we found that the site was not built as it was approved in the 21 plan. We had the correspondence and it really didn't, there really wasn't any positive direction. So that recommendation was made to the town board to revoke the special use permit. The public hearing was had, and the result of that was to submit a site plan amendment or basically resubmit the project over again as if it was new. So with that information, I did get through the review, and we did find, of course, that the stormwater facility is within the floodplain area, which invites other parameters in that, whatever volumes that for stormwater quality and quantity that needs to be held, we have to identify whether or not it's above the base flood elevation that's identified on the maps. It can't be below. The volume doesn't count towards the quality and quantity. And if in fact that there was work done in that area, we have to retroactively issue that floodplain development permit. So with that, in one of the responses, there was some communication where the DEC mining department had somehow had conversation with the operator of the quarry to make amendments to the mapping when the quarry is reclaimed. But the reality is the DEC does not have the responsibility of making amendments to the mapping. It's the community's responsibility through the developer to provide all the documentation, filing all of the information for FEMA to review, and then we can go through our process to adopt the new maps with the new outlines and elevations and all the data that comes with it. And if and when that does happen, my recommendation is that we incorporate all of that data into the flood insurance study so we can extend the limits of that study area, right? Because right now the quarry is outside of the limits of that study area. There's not a lot of data there. So again, in the responses, it was discussed that there were some email communications about the amendments made to the stormwater facilities, but it did not reflect in the approval documents from 2021 that the town board approved. So we still had a basin that was going to be outside of the floodplain discharging to wherever discharge point they had designed it to be. So that's why at the time we did not require a floodplain development permit for any work associated with this specific project. All of the other parameters, I mean the scale and the location and all the other locations of the processing areas, it's we're amending it, so we're revisiting that. It's slightly different than what it was in 2021.
Yep.
And I would assume that when we make recommendation, that's the plan that we're going to follow. So we'll follow up with all the, we have requested some recertifications of the scales and that sort of thing. But other than that, my concern is floodplain as well as stormwater management. This project did get a stormwater facility maintenance agreement filed on the parcel deed that reflected the original 2021 approval. Should that recommendation come from this board and adopted by the town board for this new plan, more than likely that agreement is going to have to get amended to equal what's actually out on site. These are, they're technical points, but they're important. right?
Yep.
Because whomever is going to operate this facility needs to follow those maintenance requirements, and with our new requirements from the state for our speedies permit, we need to receive those annual reports, the 5-year certifications. Everything's got to line up. It's all got to gel. It has to meet what was approved.
Good. Thank you. Anything else, Matt?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll ask for any comments from the public. Anybody wants to make a comment on this project? Okay. Well, we will look to the board then.
I think we have to table till seeker, right?
Table
We have
for...
to table till seeker?
Yep.
Yeah,
I motion to table till seeker, I suppose.
I'll second.
That and other outstanding.
A couple
And
of,
other
yeah, a couple of other things that Matt might have just rattled off. Yeah.
Letters just went out, or they're not
Yeah.
going to be available by,
Yeah, seeker won't be
Seeker
available.
won't be
It'll be the
available.
first meeting in
Right.
April, so
Yeah.
that gives enough time to get everything else resolved.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, we will see you in April. Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can. We're going to take a quick second before we move on to the next one because of our
Technical difficulties.
recording system right now is not working.